of social media, all it takes nowadays to spark up an online fight is to merely have an opinion. One opinion will cause many to spiral into a pit hole of anger where no one dialogues, only insults the person who has the unpopular or even the popular opinion regarding the latest trends in comic books, movies, or pulp culture. It makes sense given the circumstance. After all, acting tough behind the protective wall of the black mirror we all own and use on a daily basis makes it easy for anyone to jump right into a tirade of insults and threats. Again, just for having an opinion that they may disagree with. I decided to go against that notion. I've decided to start a video series where we discuss the hot topic issues within the comic book industry and pulp culture and provide you with another perspective. One of logic, reason, with just plain old dialogue between two people who have different opinions. My co-host and I will discuss the pulp culture topics at hand in a fun, engaging, and respectable manner. So, without further ado, let's talk about it.
Welcome back, readers. When we last left Los Angeles, Alan Miller, our ex-detective, had nightmares about strange beings. He was tasked with finding out who killed Detective Patrick Perkins, a man whose heart had been removed. With no leads, Miller had a run-in with a UFO, who informed him that a shapeshifter knocked off Perkins. The kicker? The monster also hides within Central Police Station, alongside Alan's fellow officers. Alan deemed his experience utterly bonkers, until he found the UFO he encountered yapping to the captain. The detective barged in to let the alien have it, but instead found Alice Tate, his new partner. The stage is set. The hard-nosed detective and the eager rookie set off to find their elusive killer. In our next chapter, the two traverse 1940s Los Angeles, meeting UFOs hiding in plain sight as their mystery gets stranger by the day. Meanwhile, the shapeshifter remains at large, hunting down the other detectives of Central Station. Book 2 is penned by Mr. Tony James, a writer of sorts, a lover of old noir and science fiction. Returning with vigor are his 3 able-bodied artists, aces in their own field, much like our detective. And hot diggity dog, get a load of our new rewards. Many of them are exclusive to this very Kickstarter. Be sure to peruse the add-ons as well. Commemorate your purchase with these additional items. Don't be a fuddy-duddy. Back Star Noir today. It's the only way to defeat the communists.
I love that, dude. Roger sorts.
That's actually from the second campaign. I actually made a third one for the third.
Oh, is that the my bad, man.
Campaign.
My bad. We'll play that again. That was my bad.
You just never get it right, dude.
I can't, dude. I can't. It's my 40-year-old brain is starting to rot.
I was like, oh, we're further along than this.
Sorry, man. Hey, here at Let's Talk About It, we make mistakes all the time.
It's all right.
Yeah.
But
we make mistakes. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Kyle. I didn't mean to umbrella you there. Okay, I made the mistake. Okay,
Yes.
I take full responsibility.
It's all right.
But welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to Let's Talk About It. We had a hiatus for what, 2 weeks now? It's been 2 weeks?
It was
2 weeks.
last week was Halloween.
Yeah, that's right.
Halloween adjacent, because it was show on a Thursday. And then the week before that, I think there was just some other thing that happened that we couldn't do it, but we're back. We're now, and we have a guest. How about that?
Yeah, we have Tony James, the writer of Star Noir. Welcome. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Tony James here from New York City. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, we'll talk about Star Noir in a bit. But thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right, sounds good.
So,
man, East Coast.
Yeah, oh man, I know that must be tough. That must be rough for you right now. Over here, we're like 7 o'clock. It's time to have a great time, and you're like, I'm already ready to go to bed.
Yeah. Right after that, it's going to bed right after.
Yeah. So, Kyle, Tony, what did you guys pick up? Well, how was your week? Did you guys pick up any new comic books? Kyle, what'd you pick up?
I'll let the guests go first.
Oh, by all means.
I haven't picked up new books, just stuff that's kind of been out. I went to New York Comic Con. I met the artist of this book called The Deviant, that's written by James Tinian. Santa Claus is a serial killer. That's the really kind of like the short elevator pitch of it. There's a comic book writer, because James always loves to do those stand-ins for himself. But this comic book writer is interviewing like a mass murderer in prison, like years after he kind of dressed up as Santa Claus and killed a bunch of people. Really creepy, really atmospheric. Definitely check it out, especially if you like a true detective It's got very like snowy, atmospheric, very creepy. And then the other thing was Absolute Batman.
Yeah.
Awesome. I really had a great time. I really like that it kind of it's like really over the top, like almost like a John Wick film. You know,
it is.
Alfred shredded. Why is he? Who cares? Let's just go. And then the pages that they were previewing at New York Comic Con for the second book were like the Batmobile is going back to being like the size of a building. It's like, yeah, let's go.
Oh.
Like let's just make
All right.
Why not?
make it
Yeah, why
as
not?
crazy as possible. So that's what I've been reading.
Awesome.
Cool.
Kyle?
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. What did I pick up this week? I picked up X-Force #1.
Oh,
Still sealed in
snap.
its packaging.
Still sealed. Wow.
Still sealed, and it's specifically it slided down. It's specifically the Deadpool variant card. There he is.
Oh, nice.
You know how because the trading cards, there is supposed to be like a bunch of the different trading cards of all the different X-Men, and so Deadpool is like the one that everybody wants because it's
of course
Deadpool, obviously.
Yeah.
And so everybody equates this to like his like rookie card type thing.
Right? Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, I picked that up. That was pretty cool.
Where'd you get that? Where'd you get that, by the way?
At my comic book shop. It was in the in the bins. It was
you get the luckiest breaks.
Yeah, specifically the Deadpool one because that one's the one that everybody
of course.
wants. So it's just, but I got a good deal on it, so that was pretty good. I think I only paid like $5 for it or something. So that was pretty cool. Got that.
You bastard.
And then at our local comic book shop, the wonderful Marv Wolfman, writer and creator of lots of different things, notably Teen Titans, and he created Crisis on Infinite Earths. He went to our local comic book shop just randomly and said, "Hey, you guys want me to sign anything?" And so our shop owner said, "Well, we got some Titans Judas contract #3."
Nice.
And he's like, "Sure, I'll sign them." And then they were just selling these at regular retail price with the signature. Wow. And so I called him up and I'm like, "Hey, can you put one aside for me?" Like, "Sure." So I got a Marv Wolfman signed first Nightwing. It's a reprint. It's not the actual, first one, but hey, it's a free Marv Wolfman signature.
And the first issue of the famous storyline, right? The Judas contract.
#3.
Oh, #3. Okay.
#3.
Yeah, I'm just hitting them. I'm just like hitting foul balls left and right.
I know, right? And then the last book I got was literally just today, which was this awesome. I don't think it's anything special per se, but it's just a rad Hulk cover. I just love it. This one is just one that I
Dale
always
Keown.
Liked.
Famous Dale Keown cover.
Yeah.
I saw those. I saw that book. My brother. So my brother got it for you. Then he sold it to you or gave it to you?
He gave it to me.
Oh, nice, dude. Yeah, I was looking at the interior pages and just phenomenal, man. Dale Keown was just on a whole different level when he was actively working.
That's what I picked up. Some cool stuff.
Nice. I picked up a few books this week. But the one that stood out to me the most was a book called Rome Eternal from Magma or Magma Comics. Magma, based off of San Diego. And the premise of that was, the Roman Empire never fell. It survived through the tides of time, and now it's in the future, and now it's finally starting to crumble. And that first issue was really impressive. At first I was kind of like, okay, I don't know what's going on here. It's kind of slow, But as I kept on reading, I was really impressed with the introduction of this world and also the story. And I'm a sucker for political thrillers, by the way. So it's a little bit of sci-fi. Oh, it's a lot of sci-fi actually. A little bit of action, but mainly political thriller. And the way the writer and the artist, forgive me for not remembering their names, they really did a fantastic job getting me invested, getting me excited for the second issue. And I don't want to spoil anything for the first issue, but I recommend you guys pick that book up. I think it's gonna be something big. The artwork is superb.
Yeah, it is.
All around. Just I'm just really impressed with this book. So Rome Eternal was my my book of the choice, my book of the week.
When he told me about that, I'm like, I instantly have to get it too. So I went to my shop owner and he ordered me one as well. So I'm gonna get mine soon
nice.
once it comes in. But
you won't regret it.
Definitely want.
Yeah, you won't regret it. But speaking of political thriller, that's what the topic of tonight's show is all about. Is given the fact that we had just had an election, and so it prompted the question within me of like, well, the whole topic, the whole debate for the past, I don't know, 5, maybe 10, maybe forever since the beginning of comics, maybe, is the political themes and social issue themes that are integrated within comic book stories. For whatever reason back then it wasn't a problem, but now it's become somewhat of a problem with modern books. And of course, everyone has their gripes. Some people love it, some people don't. I prefer subtlety in my comics, or not just comics, but any form of entertainment, TV, movies, and comic books. I like it when they weave it well with the story and it doesn't take away from the actual story. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think that it's like, I guess for starters, we could talk about the like, for instance, one example would be, I guess, that famous Captain America one that was written and drawn by John Byrne is the one with the Captain America button running for president. Mm-hmm. I recently picked up that issue because I found it in my back bins, and I read it, and it was well done because the whole premise of that issue was a group of people asking Captain America to run for president, and the whole issue he's contemplating it and actually considering it. He's like, well, maybe I could do some more good as president of the United States. And the whole issue is just him exploring it, of course, getting different viewpoints from different people. And then in the end, ultimately he decides not to do it because he says that, I don't want to quote because I'll just paraphrase. He tells the people who are there to egg him on, and he says, I can't be Captain America if I'm president. I could only be Captain America if I defend the American dream, and that's what I'm going to keep doing. And he walked off the stage, and everyone pretty much like gave up on that idea, and that was the end of that issue. And it was well done. It wasn't heavy-handed. The writer John Byrne did a great job towing the line, exploring both avenues, and kind of it was, and that also didn't take away from the fact that you were also engaged in the story. Now, do you guys think that's kind of what's missing today? That people are just more focused on the message as opposed to the story and interweaving it? What do you guys think?
Well, I think if you're going to have any sort of a message, political or not, I mean, it has to really be baked into the story. You have to leave room for your audience to infer and sort of kind of put the pieces together themselves. And if it's political, it really has to serve the story. I think the movies and TV shows, the comics that get a lot of flack for their political messaging are just often done very heavy-handedly.
Yeah.
And
right
it really
in your face,
it just really smacks you in the face. You're reading a Nightwing comic, and then he wants to tell you about immigration rights. All of a sudden, you're like, where did this come from? Like,
I see.
Right.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with anything?
Yeah. So, but I mean, if you were going into it trying to tell an immigration story, then that would be fine because that's sort of the whole point of the story.
So if since you're a writer yourself, then how would you have approached it? Say for instance, you wanted to speak on that with the story. Would you have somehow found a way to I guess use that immigration policy and give your thoughts on it with using Nightwing, or using a scenario where the character itself has to observe it and deal with I guess a bad guy of the week or something like that involving that?
Yeah,
I would try to find a character that would be most naturally inclined to deal with something like that in the first place. So it would feel believable for the reader. And then just if you're gonna say something political, I think you really have to try to remove yourself as the writer as much out of it as possible. And at every turn, ask what the opinions of the characters are, and not what you as the writer want them to say. So I think that kind of keeps the political messaging through this window that you don't never pass through, and that way they get to feel organic and kind of come to these things themselves.
Yeah. I think that was one of the, like, going along with that, what you just said. I think one of the main examples that I heard of something similar to that of a story that I heard, whereas with was it Jack Kirby and Stan Lee when they were writing, or Steve Ditko and Stan Lee, Steve Ditko and Stan Lee, they were writing Spider-Man, and he was like swinging over a bunch of protesters, and Jack Kirby or Steve Ditko wanted to have him belittle the protesters.
Yeah.
And Stanley said, no, we can't do that. And so, that's one of the things that you said of like, well, what makes more sense for Spider-Man, the character, to do, not necessarily the writer behind the character. And yeah.
No, it's obviously safe to say that Steve Ditko obviously did not have a positive view of at the time anyway of hippies, which was a cultural phenomenon at the time during the 60s. And so he was going to implement his own views into this character. And, all of us have a good understanding that these fictional characters are supposed to be the embodiment of idealism, right? So Stan Lee, I would have to side with Stan Lee at that point, where it's like, Peter Parker is supposed to be the ideal. He is the nerd version of Superman, right? He's good. And even though he may not agree, right, with the approach of the hippies, a truly virtuous character would say, you know what, go ahead, because that's what you guys want to do. That's fine. Just don't, hurt people. Don't step on any lines or whatever the case may be. And he can still web sling and save the day on the other side of of New York City. And I wish there was a lot more of that in comics today, and not just in comics, but also in TV shows and movies. There's a lot of TV shows where I've started watching them and they just started heavy handing like the message, and I was like, okay, I get it. We get it. Like, can we? I want to know what happened to I want to know what happened to the bad guy in episode 2. Is he going to come back? Is he? What happened with that?
No, we're done with him. We don't want to talk about it anymore. We're moved on.
And do you think? Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that it's at the end of the day, it's entertainment. So the reader, you have to be entertained. If you want to have a message, that's great, but it's almost tertiary to what we're all here for, is that to have a good time and have our just suspend our disbelief for a little bit.
Yeah, escapism.
Yeah, there
exactly,
you go.
Escapism. And again, like I was saying, I personally don't mind it. Like for instance, like Predator is one of my favorite movies, right? Now, on the surface, the A story is this alien threat hunting down these elite soldiers that went to the jungles of Mexico to take out, a rebel group down there. And the B story, the political message that Tiernan, I don't know who the writer was for that film, but the political message behind that was how the CIA uses and utilizes and lies to get their way, but it's not in your face. It's done subtly, especially during the scene after the raid in the stronghold, where Schwarzenegger's character realizes that, wait a second, this is a BS mission, and he confronts Carl Reiser's character, and it was a quick scene. It wasn't heavy-handed. It was a quick, hey, you lied to us, I can't believe you, and then they moved on. And then after that, that's when the real story started, which was the Predator hunting them down.
Had to get to the chopper.
Yeah. Benjamin Soto says, a hero shouldn't be a hero to the left or the right. He should be a hero of the people, a defender of people, not propaganda. Good point. Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely. Now, do you guys think that's what hurt? And I don't want to say damaged, but hurt the modern comic book output of books. I don't want to say the industry, because I'm not a believer of the industry dying or anything, but just that it kind of hurt it by having these heavy-handed political messages in their comics. It's Marvel and DC and so on and so forth.
I heard it, I guess, maybe in the short term. It's really just really indicative of unskilled writers. It's almost like you could kind of take the same messaging, give it to really good writers who know how to, bake it into the story, and then you wouldn't have any problem with the same ideas. It's just that these writers that they have now, they just present it in such a heavy-handed fashion that it's so obvious to anybody who's reading it.
So it's safe to say, Tony, that the writers just are not good. They're just like subpar writers who have the jobs that we all wish we had, right? That I would love to write, these characters. What about you, Kyle? Does that play a factor with you when you buy comics? 'Cause I know you're more of a reader and you just buy new comics. So does that affect you when you buy?
I think it definitely does because one of the things that like we talked about is escapism. I want to be enthralled in the world that's set up in this book. I don't want to, and it's fine if you want to have political debates or something like that within the story of the the confines of the story. But as soon as you're bringing real world issues and stuff like that, and real world like talking points into the story, that's when it really takes me out. And then I just lose it and I can't focus on this actual story anymore because all I'm thinking about is, oh, okay, well, this is just a hot button topic of the week type of thing. And I think, there's been plenty of political books that have been written throughout. I mean, some that come to mind were like V for Vendetta. That was a political book. I mean, you even look at Dark Knight Returns. That had a whole bunch of politics in it, but yet that never took you out of the story. It actually engaged you more into the story.
Yeah, so Superman being a government sellout was just a plot device to really kind of have you take a side in the fight against Batman versus Superman.
Exactly, and that didn't mess with my views of Superman or anything like that, or make me want to do anything else. It was just that was part of the story of what Frank Miller wanted you to read and see the divide between him and Batman and how far things have gotten. So I think, specifically with the writers now, it's completely different and a lot less subtle than what it has been previously.
Yeah, and another thing about, you mentioned Frank Miller's approach to that whole idea of Superman being a government tool. It also got you to think about it too.
Yeah.
Not only did you enjoy it and were entertained by it, but also got you to think like, wow, that would be scary. A Superman government tool, like someone who's just a super weapon, and
that could be deployed anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And that's always a sign of a writer who's able to toe the line of entertaining you while at the same time making you think about certain things about how power does corrupt and what it could look like if it's given to someone with powers like Superman.
Or also, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and also not only that, but being manipulated to do it.
Yeah,
which was even more interesting as well, which made the whole dynamic interesting when you read the book.
I was gonna say another example that I thought of was another Superman story, which Superman Red Sun.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's a very political book, showing the what if Superman story of, what if he was a communist? What would that look like? And it's like, okay, well, it's like, we're talking about communism in the book, but like, that's not like, it's part of the world that was set up.
Yeah. And that's how different countries control the flow of information.
Right.
Superman goes, I would know if my government was lying to me. And then Lois is like, would you?
Right. Yeah. And then, of course, that caused the seeds of doubt, right? Within like, oh, wait a minute, maybe she's right, because of course, in that power structure, everyone's backstabbing each other because they all want that position. They all want to be the top and rule. So I always thought that was a great move by Millar, and it's funny how like it's also a callback to Dark Knight, considering how Batman is the one who actually does beat up Superman in the second issue, which is great. And of course that red sun, the red lamps scene was also fantastic. Like just an ingenious move for that story.
Oh yeah, the book is amazing. That's the reason why it's like you can enjoy the book for what it is as well, and you can also enjoy the book if you want to dive into the political messages and really study it and look at what is being said. It's not like in your face. Oh, you must believe this thing or you must think this way. It's like, okay, you can enjoy the story as like a what if story. What if Superman was just sent to Russia instead of the US? But if you want to, you could also go through and read it. I think that's the thing with this modern comic books where it's like, you don't get that distinction. It's like you only get that version, and that's it. You don't get the other subtlety version.
Mhm.
Do you also find yourself actually not wanting to pick up new books because of it? Like, you pick up one book, right?
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, well, this is not for me. Like, for instance, the Captain America Straczynski run, right? That was the one that's like, okay, dude, we get it. Like, he hates Nazis, we get it. Can you give us something to chew on? And he never did, for whatever reason. Does that cause you to not want to pick up future books by the companies, or do you just keep looking, sifting through, and hopefully you find something that's well, I guess that's the wrong question to ask you. Are you okay
Frame
with
the question better?
I'm just again, my mind's just going off. I'm just trying to figure out trying to formulate the question here. But I guess the question I really want to ask is, do political books turn you off in general? Like, if you see a book that's kind of politically, like Department of Truth is one book from Image Comics that I picked up the other day. I didn't pick it up. I was skimming through it and I was like, oh, this looks interesting, but it's already issue, I think, 20 something. And I totally missed the first 20. But if you saw something like that, would that prompt you to pick it up and check it out? Or do you just avoid it altogether because of the other books that kind of ruin your reading experience?
I mean, I would always kind of give it the first issue to kind of really have an open mind about it. But otherwise, I'd probably skip it unless somebody was telling me to, like, no, it's like, it's like an ex machina. Like, you gotta, yes, there's political stuff in it, but there's so much more to it than that I would actually kind of go back, revisit it.
That's right. That's another good example. Do it. The Ex Machina book by Brian K. Vaughan. That was another great book, Kyle. If you ever get a chance
I haven't read that yet.
Oh, you gotta read it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It really is fantastic. And again, it on the surface, it does look politically heavy-handed, but the way Brian K. Vaughan and Tony Harris kind of weave that, like we've been discussing, they weave it together nicely where it doesn't take away from the actual story itself. Well, it's great. I highly recommend that one.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to find it sometime. I'll go look for it somewhere. Is it like a long series or was it just a short story?
I think it was like 30 issues or something like that.
Yeah,
or...
it was pretty long. Yeah,
I actually have it. I'll let you borrow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You got them all?
I got all the single issues, man. All of them.
Wow.
It was a great book. It was a great series. It really was. I'm surprised he's still not writing comics. If anything, it's now is the time to be writing comics for Brian K. Vaughan.
He's got Saga, and he's he's doing the executive producer stuff, all the stuff that he spent the last 25 years making. Now he's gonna make that for different streaming services.
Okay. So he's moving on up then.
He's moving to that Mark Millar kind of.
I
made all the stuff. Now it's my time to make the TV show.
Yeah. I can't blame him because he did write a lot of great stuff like Why the Last Man.
Yeah.
Again, Brian K. Vaughan's another example of someone who weaves the political stuff with stories, but he does such a great job, making you care and not losing you with the heavy-handed political stuff like some of the other current writers.
Yeah. I think you did mention an interesting point though when you asked about the recent Captain America run by Straczynski, right?
Yeah.
I think, I think with we talk about, one of the questions of because when I was looking through the chat of whether or not heroes should be left or right or, uniting the left or right. Somebody like Captain America, obviously, he was created in the 40s. He was definitely against Nazis and all that stuff. And I think it's funny how now they're going back to that when before, they would use Nazis and stuff as the main villain, but then they kind of switched to Hydra and they used Hydra as the proxy villain that they would use. But it just kind of got me thinking of should, characters, these superheroes and stuff, should they have modern political leanings? Or should they be converted to a version of the right or left, but in the comic books, like the Hydra versus Nazis version?
Who would be the Democrats? Who would be Republicans, though? That's the question.
Well, I don't know, but that's sort of what do you guys think?
I think it just comes back down to it, serving a narrative purpose. I mean, I think about Civil War, both the comic and the movie, and it had kind of that left-right paradigm, but it was like a variation of it that like made sense for these heroes. So it wasn't such a carbon copy. So yeah, it just, you got to just find something unique for the actual story that you're telling.
Yeah, I agree with that. Again, these are fictional characters, so
Right.
they gotta be ideal, and it's all about protecting what's right and what's true and what's just. So, sometimes like you mentioned Civil War, you had Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, right? These two are actually good. They actually protect those things. But what made it a little bit nuanced and a little bit gray was the fact that Tony wanted the government to control, whereas Captain America, Steve Rogers, was like, no. I believe in individual liberty. I mean, he didn't say those words, but that's exactly what he was expounding, was that idea of like, no, I want the secret identity. I want my privacy. I don't want my information out there. And that's what caused the strife, which is what in society today, that's kind of how it is with the surveillance state. There's people who, well, I got nothing to hide, so I don't care if there's cameras everywhere. But then you have people say, well, I don't want the government to know where I'm at every time or what my face looks like. That's none of their business, and that's what causes the clash between a lot of the citizenry, especially in this country. I don't know about the other countries, but that was a good example of reflecting what's going on in the real world and bringing it to the art world, because that's what art is supposed to be, right? Great art is supposed to be a reflection of what's going on in our everyday world, but fictionalized and presented in a way where it can be reflected back, and then people who are hard-nosed about their beliefs or their viewpoints can look at it and be like, oh yeah, I didn't think of it with that perspective, like that's actually a good point, this fictional character said it in one line of this movie, right, or in the book. And that's a good thing. That's a great thing to do. But again, it like Tony said, it boils down to who's writing it and how you present it and how you execute it. So yeah, it's I think that's probably the best observation about regarding that. It's always got to be a reflection of that, and always keep the characters not centered, but keep them protecting the good and the just. And another example that I could think of that I just thought of right now was Action Comics 775, the Superman issue, the Action Comics, the one where he fights the Elite, the What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, the American Way. That issue, the reason why that issue worked, not just for me, but for everyone, because now that issue is like a big key issue for a lot of people, is because Joe Kelly did a great job challenging the Superman ideal of, I'm never going to kill, even if the person is the most evil, vile person on earth. Right. And then here come the Elite, which is a knock on the Authority, because the Authority book was like selling like hotcakes, man. Like that was like the book when it was out. And rightfully so, because it was a great book. Warren Ellis and then Mark Millar, who took it over after, did a phenomenal job with that series. But
superheroes can be like that; they can just
kill
people.
It was very cool. And I love how Joe Kelly was able to say, "Well, let's challenge that. Let's bring that into Superman's world and challenge him to see how he would react to that." And it worked beautifully. I mean, you have that issue, Tony, right? You've read it. You know of that issue?
No, I've never that.
Oh, okay. No. Well, in the story, this superhero team called the Elite, they're doing what the Authority does. They kill the bad guys, and Superman obviously is like against that. And they have all a clash.
People love it. He's finally getting rid of. They're saying, oh, they're finally getting rid of all these bad guys.
And that Superman's old-fashioned. He shouldn't exist anymore. That kind of deal.
Wow, okay.
There's a great sequence in the book where he's flying through the city and he's hearing the people having the conversation about, he's old-fashioned. He should leave town. We got this new team now. And of course, you have the other side going, no, we got to uphold the justice system and show them that we're better and that kind of thing. And then they have this big old fight in one of Jupiter's moons, which was pretty phenomenal. It's great because he showcases a glimpse of how dangerous he could really be, but he chooses not to because he's Superman, right? He's all about
ideals.
Sticks with the ideals. And again, that's another great example of like, yeah, bringing that in and challenging those ideas, because that's what I feel good political books should be. It should challenge your ideas, and do it respectfully and do it objectively, if possible, objectively. And like you mentioned earlier, taking yourself out of it and really looking at the character and how the character would react, as opposed to yourself, your own viewpoints and your personal views on whatever topic it may be. And Joe Kelly did a fantastic job. Just, kind of wink, wink. I hate the authority, but here's, I still respect, the writers who wrote those books. But yeah, that's another prime example of being able to weave together something that's political and also entertaining.
Yeah, like, I mean, the characters just have to stay, especially the established properties characters. They should stay true to who they are, no matter what story you're placing them in. So if you are going to put them in a political situation, the decision making, Bruce Wayne should still act like Bruce Wayne. It shouldn't just be the mouthpiece of the writer.
Right.
Good point. Crenshaw says, I think the problem with modern writers is they write people with opposing views as evil, not as people wanting to do good from a different viewpoint. Good point. Yeah. Good point. Kind of like Thanos, right? The way Thanos was written in Avengers Endgame. I mean, even though in the comics he was in love with death, right? And that's why he did what he did for the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. What we got in the movie was someone who just had misplaced ideals and thought he was doing a good thing.
Thanos was right.
Yeah. But Tony, does it personally irk you when you pick up some of your favorite books and you see that they kind of steer away from your favorite character's ideals? I mean, I don't even know, who is your favorite superhero character, if you have one.
It's Batman. Yeah, it's Batman. I can't think of too many instances where Batman's had some kind of political ideology crammed into it. I mean, I think the closest was maybe Batman the Cult, with like kind of having a conversation of like the power of religion. But that felt very much within the world of Batman. It's tough to it's belief versus belief. The belief of Batman versus the belief of this cult. And spoilers, the cult wins. But yeah, I can't remember any time that I've read a Batman story and then some political narrative came in out of left field.
Or not just a political message, but something that's out of character for Batman. Something that's like for instance, here's a good example: Zack Snyder's version of Batman in his movies, the Batman who kills.
Oh, I always saw those interpretations as like almost Elseworlds. I kind of go in. I kind of go in there going like, oh, this is not a faithful recreation of the character. They're gonna try some things with it. So you're always open to like an interpretation. They're gonna try to bend some rules, break other ones. So those I have an open mind about.
Okay, so you're more forgiving for the movies. Okay.
Yeah, as long as like there's like some semblance of the spirit of the character, like even though that is Zack Snyder and that Batman kills, like there are still plenty of moments where you're like, that's a Batman move. That's Bruce Wayne thinking there.
Okay, that's fair. Kyle, you have any like moments like that you picked up in the small 2-year span that you started reading comics? Have you picked up anything where you're like, oh, this is kind of off character, it's weird, I don't like it?
Let's see that I'm trying to think of that's like a specific character that I know of that had a different outlook or something like that. I can't necessarily think of. I think it's just like you were talking about, more of the idealized version of the character, and then like when you see a different writer's take on it, that's when it's like, oh well, that's not necessarily how I would view, like you say, Batman, to make that choice or something like that. I do think it is funny when I do read some of these older back issues and seeing like the characters and stuff and how they deal with situations, like especially like Green Lantern. All like the different Green Lanterns have their own very different viewpoints on stuff. Like Guy Gardner is very different from how he handles stuff and how he chooses to deal with situations versus Hal Jordan or Jon Stewart, and they all have their own beliefs, and it's pretty defined on what they believe in, but yet they still come together and they do fight the bad guy and they know what to do. So it's like it's never like really out of character for them whenever they make a decision. It's always just, part of what they're doing. What about you? Have you read anything?
Me? Oh gosh, now I gotta think about it.
Yeah, you came up with the question. Yeah,
That's fair. Gosh, I don't. I mean, I haven't read. It was up Unhinged. I'm like, hey, what's up, Joe? Dude, what's up, Joe Ball? Nice to have you. Gosh, there was that long period where I didn't read comics for a while because I started to notice that they were not. I wasn't the demographic anymore. Let's just put it that way. I aged out of the demographic, and so I stopped reading superhero comics for a very long time, and I just focused more on indie stuff. So Image, Dark Horse, Oni Press, and just kind of focus on those because I thought, well, you know what, I'm at that point now where I wanna, I view the comic book industry. I appreciate the medium more as I got older. And now I was able to open up my mind more to like, oh, I'll pick up this crime noir book here. I'll pick up this, sci-fi book there. And I kind of stayed away from the superhero stuff for a long time because, like I said, I aged out from the demographic. They're no longer writing it for my age group. So I can't really say, honestly. Earlier you talked about Absolute Batman. That's probably the one where I was like, all right, I could deal with this. This is cool. This is cool. It's different. It's their ultimate universe. I'm all in. I'm all about it. Let's do it. So I'm really excited for that, and I hope that Scott Snyder really just delivers it and hits it out of the field, because I really love how they ended it in the first issue when they introduced the main bad guy, Joker. I'm looking forward to what they're going to do with that. And so what's up, Jason, my brother? I hope you're doing well. My hero should hate who I hate, bad guys. Yeah, it should be simple enough, right?
Right.
It should be simple enough, Justin. But other than that, I really can't think of an example, honestly, where I read it, I'm like, this isn't Superman, because Superman's my favorite character. That's the guy I like to read. I can't really think of anything. No.
Do you think with anything like TV shows and movies and stuff, do you think that there is a place and a time for heavy-handed political messaging or social issues to be placed in that stuff? Like, does it like we talked about, yes, it has to be subtle and stuff like that, but do you think that there is a time that it should be blatantly in your face? You need to know it, because one of the things that came to mind as we were talking about this was it wasn't a political issue per se, but it was a big social issue, because I was talking about Green Lanterns and big Green Lantern guy. One of the big issues was the where Green Lantern and Green Arrow showed Green Arrow's sidekick Speedy doing drugs on the cover.
Right.
That was a big issue, talking to it's like literally in your face, because he's literally on the cover shooting up. So it's like, right. So it's like, that was obviously meant to be a big in your face of like, hey, don't do drugs, stuff like that. Or, stuff is that, should that happen in comic books?
Yeah. Oh, actually, I remember like a social issue crammed into a Batman story. It was the first book of Sean Gordon Murphy's White Knight. It was like, Batman was caught on camera beating up the Joker, and now he's getting canceled for essentially police brutality.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh,
that.
You know what? That's pretty good, actually. That's pretty good.
But I mean, I remember reading that and going like, but the Joker's a mass murderer. Like,
right. Yeah. No, it's just this one moment that you're seeing, and so therefore that's all that you're ever gonna see.
But I think why the White Knight kind of bounces back from that is that it doesn't spend too much time on that. That's just like that's really like an inciting incident. They tell a much bigger story from that.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I was gonna say that's a misfire, right? That's like, well, that's kind of, Batman's not really a cop. Cops hate Batman in Gotham, with few exceptions, obviously.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, if there is like a prominent issue, like something that's just so big and it reaches the forefront of our minds because of how big it is, yeah, I think it should be. Absolutely. But again, it just depends on how you do it. Like, for instance, I really loved the first 2 seasons of Young Justice. The third one was pretty good. And I think the third season, which is when they came back after being canceled after the second season, I believe, was about I think Nightwing discovered there was a lot of about people in cages, like young people in cages, teenagers in cages, who are being forcefully injected with like a serum that gives them superpowers, and they're all like, you know, these science experiments. But it was obviously a commentary on human trafficking. Now that is like, it wasn't, we're going to talk about human trafficking now. It was just mentioned because that's pretty much what's been going on, and that was in the forefront of the writers' minds, and they brought attention to it by just weaving it well with the story. And of course, the story was about Ra's al Ghul, or I believe it was Darkseid or something like that. But yeah, I'm a believer that, yeah, you should, if you can tell a good story at the same time as well. But yeah, I don't have a problem with that. It also reminds me of Demon in the Bottle, right? The Tony Stark famous one where he's staring at himself in the mirror and he has a bottle, or I think a glass of hard whiskey, I believe it was. I can't remember.
So, yeah.
And that's great because at the time, yeah, alcoholism was a major problem in the country. Drunk driving became an issue. And so when something is just so massive, yeah, I don't see a problem with that. I think they should be reflected for sure. Now, heavy-handed, I don't know. You gotta give me something good, you know. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Unless you have another.
Justin says in the chat that, you know, it's maybe when it's not like detrimental to yourself, you know, where like drugs and alcohol are, you know, that's not necessarily good. It seems like for your body
to be obtuse when the message is to not be detrimental to yourself. Maybe. Well, possibly I could see that. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I'm a believer that art is expression. It's human expression. We're all human. We all express ourselves in various ways. Some write novels, some write movies, make movies. Some, you know, we write comics, and it all depends on how you deliver it. It all depends on what kind of signal you're sending out, because that's what we all are. We're all little antennas sending signals out, and then readers will pick up on the signal and decide, yeah, no, I'm not for that, or be like, yeah, actually, yeah, that's pretty cool. I want more of this signal, right? And so, for me, again, you just like, I'm in line with Tony here, where it's, you toe the line, and if you believe in something, if you really truly believe it, it's not just a trend that you're joining, right? It's not a bandwagon you're joining. You actually truly believe in these issues that are true to you or close to you, and you want to bring it attention to readers, then yeah, go ahead and, you know, I'm all about veiling it around a compelling and enthralling story. There's a reason why these genres exist, right? They're there as packages for us to take, formulas to take, and then we can weave around, you know, our messages in them and present it to the reader, and they can still enjoy the story while at the same time, I guess subconsciously or subtextually, being able to take in the message of like, oh yeah, that's actually kind of like cool and legit, like the Predator example, right? Like the CIA and the whole works with that. And I'm sure there's other various examples of that as well in various movies and comics. So yeah, I'm all about that.
Yeah, I mean, art is getting away with it, you know. So you know, if you're gonna have a message, but at the end of the day, we're all entertained by the book, you got away with it.
Yeah.
And I'm also surprised that we had this conversation about you know, political narratives in comics, and we never talked about the X-Men once.
Oh, right, dude.
Oh yeah,
that's a prime example of that. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. A prime example of that. I can't believe it.
I mean, even like Grant Morris's run in the 2000s, you know, that had a lot of societal stand-ins.
Oh, yeah.
For what the mutants were. But those are very entertaining stories. It wasn't that had a message, but it was really baked in. You were caught up in this other, much bigger narrative.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And again, it worked. It always worked. And again, it's just a matter of how you deliver, how you present it. But yeah, X-Men was huge. I can't believe we missed that, dude.
I know. Yeah.
They're pretty famous.
Showed off an X-Force. It's staring in the face.
X-Force book. Well, but I think at this point, also it's kind of X-Men is obvious. It's very obvious. Magneto is supposed to be Malcolm X, and Professor X is Martin Luther King, and their approaches to who's are we superior, or should we integrate with the human beings? And it's what 40, 50 years now of stories.
Yeah.
It took from that, and it still works to this day. It's just unfortunate, again, the writers who have been currently writing are not very good at delivering those stories. It's very easy, I think.
Yeah, they put too much of themselves in it, and you're there for the characters, and they have to have the spirit of the characters.
Yeah, that's the thing that's missing is the human element in the fictional characters. That's what's missing, and that's what from what I've read so far, the little I've read in the mainstream currently. Hunch says, making it entertaining is important. Political, sociological messages do get dull and boring when dragged on or forced on. Absolutely. Yeah. Joe Ball says, I hate those goddamn muties and those those dang goop. Great South Park reference there. But great conversation. Thank you, Tony, again for joining us and giving your 2 cents on everything here, because that's what we're all about. We like to have discussions. We like to talk about things and not shy away from it, and just face them head on. I think that's what's also missing in today's social landscape is dialogue, is the being able to talk to people.
Wrong. You're wrong. Sorry.
You're wrong. You're stupid. You don't know what you're talking about.
A little more civil discourse and less WWE.
Yeah, exactly. And I love WWE.
Yeah, he knows all about it.
I love it. But there's a time and place for WWE. But right now, I like this this setup here where we could just talk, and you could just share your thoughts and not have to be worried about what you say, because I'm a free speech guy too. You can say whatever you want, even if we get flagged by YouTube. I don't care.
No,
but
wrong.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
Now, you yourself are a writer. You saw our review of your book, Star Noir, book 1. I really enjoyed it. I was really impressed. I really was genuine when I gave my review. Kyle was too. Very surprising, because between you and me, most of the indie stuff is not that great. No name, I won't mention any names, but this was a very refreshing, to like, wow, this looks legit. To have you have a great artist working with you.
Yeah, I was gonna say the art.
Yeah, the art is like superb.
Yeah,
and the
Pablo Vinicius, they're amazing.
How do you before we look at your campaign, how would you get in touch with the artists of this book? Where'd you meet? Did you know them already, or did you find them online?
It was Pablo I found on this Facebook group called Connecting Writers and Artists.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. So I just was looking for an artist for this noir book that I have, and he was one of a bunch of different artists that reached out, and I really liked his style. I was like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, this is it. And then once he started drawing the characters, I was like, this is it. Like, I don't want to look at anybody else.
Nice.
Vinicius I found on Instagram. He had a lot of great pieces. He was like coloring G.I. Joe when it was like IDW before it got sold. And then once we put it all together, it just it was really kind of jaw dropping. I was like, we got to get this out there. And then also people had, before we had even launched the first Kickstarter, whenever I would show some of the art, people would have this like, when is this? Where can I get this? I need to find it right now. Like, it was very this immediate. So we knew we were on to something kind of special.
Did you have this idea brewing for a while, or did you just come up with it when you saw his artwork?
No, this was I as a writer, I just I don't like to kind of wait on a story that I have. I take like 3-4 months, write the story, the script, like work it all out, and then I just shove it in a drawer. And over the years, I've accumulated a lot of scripts. And so I wanted to do this one because because well, nostalgia's coming back and it's big, and aliens are coming back in the news. So this might actually fit for the right time culture wise.
They're all real.
Yeah, right. um, and yeah, one of the earliest versions, it was like a modern day thing. And then I thought about like it being in the 40s, and it's like, oh, well, that takes on a whole different
Yeah.
personality at that point,
Yeah.
and a whole different set of challenges, when you're doing like a period piece. But yeah, it's been really fun working with these guys. Yeah, it's every time I get pages from them, it's just is wow is is the first reaction that I get.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. Yeah, you mentioned it. That was like, yeah, was it always supposed to be set in the 40s, time period, or was it supposed to be a different time period that you were thinking of?
Yeah, it's like I would say like maybe like the first script, it was set in modern day, and it just it felt a little too trite, a little too like boring. It felt like I was just trying to do like another X-Files. Didn't really have it didn't really have its own identity, and then putting it on in the 40s, it just was like, well, I mean, because I also really love films from the 40s. Detour is one of my favorite films. I mean, you talk about an idiom machine of 1940s slang. Detour definitely has it. But like the Blue Dahlia, of course, Maltese Falcon, and then also the conspiracy theories that I just love. It's kind of like a guilty pleasure of just kind of like how did they make the pyramids? And all the aliens, and all the
you're speaking my language, Tony. You're speaking my language.
Yeah. And then just trying to figure out kind of how to merge these and just do our best impression of Ed Brubaker is what we're trying to do.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, you're hitting all your strides. I'll just say that, and I meant when I said that I was really impressed with your pacing was well done. I mean, everything about it, like the artwork. I mean, did you give your artist references, or is he also an aficionado for like old 50s LA?
No, I give him pretty exhaustive referses.
Nice. Well, you're doing a great job because it shows. It really does show.
I in terms of panel descriptions, they're always really straightforward, just kind of need to know. And then I give him a bunch of references, and then he just kind of takes all that information, and then he gives you the pages that you're seeing right here.
Wow.
Look at this.
That's
so
great.
Yeah, so this is the third book in the series. The second one kind of has a pretty explosive ending to it. And this just I mean, since we've written the whole story, it's just we're just moving right along with the next book in production.
How many issues is there gonna
there's 6 here in this story arc, and then there is a companion New York story that is also also a period piece. Very much. It's supposed to be kind of like a brother sister relationship between the two stories.
Is it going to follow some of the same characters that we see in this issue, or is it going to be a whole different cast that then are going to like interlink?
We gotta wait to find out. I don't know.
All right.
I like that. I mean, look at this, man. Like,
yeah.
How can you not want to back this I mean, this is just chef's kiss. I mean, it's I'm always impressed with artists who are able to understand I'm just not talking about the detail. I'm just talking about storytelling, sequential storytelling.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're able to follow this and like pull you into old LA, it's not easy to do, especially in comics. And the fact that you were able to provide, I'm sure he has a whole bunch of reference pictures, which I'm sure, like I said, worked out best for the book for all involved. But guys, if you guys have not backed this, do it now.
Now, have you ever I was going to ask, because of the references, have you ever lived in LA? I know you're on the East Coast, so it's like, have you ever actually visited here and learned, actually seen any of the streets or anything like that? Or was this all just lots of
I mean,
research and seeing it.
No, it's I've been to California a number of times. My dad for a while, like he lived in Petaluma, so I got to kind of go around California, and also like one of my favorite video games is LA Noire, and Rockstar.
Wow.
Rockstar did such a amazing attention to detail in recreating Los Angeles. So anytime there was like a blind spot in my research photos that I needed for a building or how something might be colored in that era. I actually take screenshots from LA Noire to give to the art team.
Nice.
Hey, you gotta use any reference.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just trying to do as much research as possible about Los Angeles. I'm always nervous that some Angelino is going to be like, "Hey, that's not where that street
Right.
is. That's where
Nah, don't worry about that.
because I know as a New Yorker, I see so many movies that like characters go into one subway station and they come out a different one. You're like, that's not how you get there. So I
never would have thought of that, because I've never been to New York. So like, yeah, when I see stuff that's on like those subways and stuff like that, I'm like, all right, that's just the subway works, I guess, like that. But
yeah,
since you've been there,
So we just do our best to make educated guesses about Los Angeles.
And that's fine, as long as it's plausible to the reader. I mean, like I said, this panel here is enough.
Mhm.
It's enough to already put you there, right here.
Yeah.
And you have all numerous panels throughout the book too, in book 2 especially. It's fantastic how you just are able, especially the artist is able to do that.
What I love about Pablo is that he always puts there's so many side civilian characters. Like I think I might have looked at this panel, I don't know, maybe over a dozen times before I noticed that on the far left there's two civilians on the roof.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, yeah.
Right there. Yep.
And he's always doing that. There's always just it's like every time I look at another panel, there's just like some detail that I didn't notice before, and it's always because like the panel descriptions, like I said, they're just very straightforward. They're just the character's running and he's opening the door, and then he adds all this like extra stuff to give it extra life.
You found a good one.
Lived in. It
Yeah.
feels very lived in. Like very,
exactly.
Like, this is something you could see like different stories happening in this world.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not uncommon too to hang out on the roof top of a building, especially if you have access. So, well, I sure did, for sure. I mean, if I had access, let's go and check out the city landscape. I love it. I always love looking at the city landscape. Like you said, in the 40s. Yeah.
And if you're interested, if you've not read it, you can actually read the first 9 pages for free. There's a link under the cover of the Kickstarter there, and that'll just take you to a PDF to read. Yep. So just no questions asked. You can read the first 9 pages, get a good taste of it. Everybody that's picked it up has loved it. They find it that it's worth the time and investment. And we work our butts off on every book. We never take the audience for granted. We always act like the next book could be the last one. And we just really leave it all out there. I mean, yeah,
I'm happy for you, man. I really am. I mean, book 3, that's a feat. And it's you're gaining momentum, which is a great thing, because I shouldn't be surprised, because that first book was so strong and so well done that I was like, yeah, this is it. This should be an Image comic book. Like this should be printed by a major publisher. Like I can't believe. Are you going to do that, by the way? Are you going to look?
That's my winter project. Is now that I got 3 successful campaign. Well, technically 5 if you want to include the Indiegogos. Now that we have all of this together, I want to go pitch it to Image, to Dark Horse, to somebody told me on a stream, Oni Press. I should talk to
Oni
them.
Press, yeah.
Oni Press, yeah.
That could be one.
Titan Comics with they've been doing the Conan Barbarian.
Yeah. So just trying to see who bites. I think why I kind of waited this long is because when it comes to pitching to publishers in this era, like the quality of the book and the story is not enough. You have to also audition like your monetary value, like how much.
Oh, right,
what your readership is, like what's like the return on investment they're gonna get. So it's like, okay, well, 3 campaigns, they all put up big numbers. The audience is growing, so there's clearly demand for this. So they have to kind of take that with it being a good book, and because I'm still a no name, so there's not much to bank off of that.
Hopefully not for long.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No, I mean, and
Yeah.
you've been working your butt off, like you're mentioning, when you're doing a campaign, you're literally like you're working. You're actually, it's like a second job when you campaign. I think that's what a lot of I mean, I'm guilty of it too. You know, when you run a campaign, people never look at it as a job, and it is. It's pretty much like a second full. Nah, I guess depending on how much you want to invest, a full-time job where you have to contact people. Hey, can I be on your show? Can I promote my book? Or you give it a shout out, you know, that kind of that's the kind of stuff that a lot of indie creators don't take into account when they want to put out a book, and you put in the work.
I went around New York City Comic Con on the floor with business cards with a QR code, sending people to this Kickstarter.
Dude, great.
Yeah,
great, and it worked, and it obviously paid off. You reached your goal, and some, you know. And so, and you still have 5 days to go with 212 backers. And that's nothing to sneeze at, you know. 212 backers, that's 212 readers who are going to come back for book 4.
And this this Kickstarter is it's the most new readers I've had in a campaign so far. So
that's great.
Really
that's
nice.
Great.
So we're really picking up people this time. Mm-hmm. So
that's
I'm
awesome.
I'm excited. Yeah, I really want to get this story out and finished and hopefully published to make to make the publishing aspect just a little bit easier for myself.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm your review that you did last time, you kind of mentioned that I do this without an editor, and I thought that was really funny because yes, I do. And I think the reason why I kind of survive on that is because I hate indulgence. So I'm always just trying to remove a page. I'm always trying to, if a character says something in 10 words, is there 5 words to say it?
Yeah.
And I think because I'm so hyper aware of that constantly, I'm always trying to just make it as lean as possible without destroying the narrative, of course.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was doubly impressed for sure.
Yeah. Because when we were reviewing it, we were reviewing it and I was looking through it and I'm like, you know, normally this is the type of stuff that, you know, like we were talking about, like normally stuff I'd be picking out, you know, of like different things of like, oh, this could be changed or this, you know, whatever. But I'm like, I'm not really finding that many stuff, you know? Yeah. And so it's like, that's what prompted you to say, well, what's his editor? And then he's like, oh, there's no
editor. Holy crap. He's doing it all himself.
And I did agree. You guys liked the ending of the first book. I think there was a criticism of it not being more explosive of an ending. To
it was like
I agreed. I thought it was a little more situational in that being like the first book. Like it's you know, you don't want to show all the cards right away. Like there's so much story to do that in. And it was just kind of the natural exit for that book. But the second book, I think hopefully I rectified the explosive finish to the second one.
Yeah. Oh wow, was that because of our influence?
No. That's the end. That's
we're not that popular, Julius.
Yeah.
No, that was always the ending to the second book. But when I was doing it, I was just like, oh well, that should rectify that. I mean, this one, the ending of the second one is a much bigger punch than the way the first one ends.
Great, yeah, because that's the way, you know, in this industry, that's kind of how you get people to come back. You gotta give them that explosive ending to be like, oh, I gotta pick up the next one, you know. So it's again, man, I'm happy you're in book 3, and I'm really looking for. How many books you say you were gonna do for this one?
There's 6.
6.
You guys read the second one? Would you?
So I briefly read through the second one.
What are your like sort of like preliminary thoughts on it?
Good, you want to go ahead?
No, you go, Kyle. Please, by all means.
So preliminary thoughts is it's good. Yeah, it definitely continues on. You know, the story of following these characters, building more of the world out. You know, seeing more interesting characters that because I went through and I reread the first issue again, and I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what that was, and that's what that was. So a lot of the other things were starting to click for me. It didn't give away everything because there was still a lot of stuff that remains, for the next issue, which is good. That's what you want.
Yeah.
And so there was a few things that I saw that was, just hairline nitpicks, that like did not detract from the story whatsoever. It was just something that I caught. But other than that, yeah, it was great seeing new characters and especially seeing different, things of these characters and that you never would have guessed. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's definitely really interesting, especially, building out the world a lot more and seeing all these different things. That was what was really good about it.
Cool. Yeah, I love the continuation of it. And again, like Kyle said, the introduction to the new characters was on point. And I love the relationship building between the two protagonists of the story. Like it's starting to grow, and I'm liking it more and more as the story progresses. And I like the potential love interest between some of the characters. And yeah, you do a great job cutting back and forth, because that's very tough for a lot of writers, right? To be able to tell multiple stories in one book, because if you don't cut it right or pace it right, you could really confuse the reader, and you're like, whoa, really what happened? Who's this guy? What's going on? Yeah. And you do a great job doing that, where you don't lose it ever. It's just a nice flow of like, okay, I know exactly where I'm at. I know who this is, and let's go. Let's keep going.
That's the power of outlining your stories before you write them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the importance. Yeah. That's what every writer should do. Outline your story, know what you're going to write, so that when you get to the script, you know exactly where you're going and what to do.
Yeah. I wish Star Wars would take a page out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because by the time when you start writing the each scene, I know the order that it's supposed to be in. I know how, if it's for a side character, I know how short the scene is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And you're always just trying to make sure that your main characters are still the stars of the show, and they're not jockeying for position with all these side characters. So you try to give them most of the, not screen time, but most of the page time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, a great continuation. I'm looking forward to book 3 and finding out what happens there, because it's a huge development if you guys have not read book 2. And again, it's one of those instances where I always say that's how you get readers to invest it in your story and want to know, and actually start to like your characters more as well, because that's important, to connect with the characters of your story, or else what's the point? What's the point of reading your book if I can't connect with the characters? So great job on that, man. Truly.
Thank you. It's we work our butts off. It's something that we do every day. It's something I think I have to stop thinking about when I go to sleep at night.
Yeah. Turn off your brain.
But do you enjoy it though? Do you enjoy it?
Yes. I
okay.
What kind of a question is that, Kyle?
I don't know. Some people,
I mean, it shows on the page. That's how you know.
But sometimes we get so caught up in what we're doing that we forget to have fun while we're doing it.
Oh, okay. That's a good point. Yeah, all right.
Honestly, it feels more like working on like a science experiment and trying to just go through all the variables. And it's like, if you put this with this should get the reaction that you should think. But you don't know for sure until you put it out there. And then people not only have that reaction, but have a much better reaction. You're like, oh, I guess it worked. Okay, cool, great. Yeah. Now we're off. But yeah, you should play the new video. I'm definitely. It's still a minute long, but it's further along in the story.
Fine. We'll do it.
I can't hear it.
No.
No.
It's silent this time.
Yeah.
Is it silent? You can't hear it?
It's silent. Yeah.
Oh, what the? Oh, gosh. See?
Again.
Again.
Technical difficulties.
Dang, man. In my brain. All right, here you go. How about now?
All right, we're good.
Hello again, readers. Last time in Los Angeles, our ace detective and his eager rookie set off to find their elusive killer. They confirmed that the mysterious shapeshifter lurks among Alan's fellow officers in Central Station. Alan had a close encounter with one of these strange beings, a real cookie with peepers to die for. He learns the Central detectives are being hunted and digs deeper to find out who killed Perkins. Meanwhile, Perkins' partner, Ray Foster, found himself in the soup, hunted by the very same killer. In our next chapter, the stakes are even higher, as our killer stacks more bodies than an OnlyFans model. Our two detectives peel back the layers to this onion, meeting kooky characters like Orson Welles. A collision course is imminent, with more twists and turns than a 10-cent carnival ride. Book 3 is penned by Mr. Tony James, a writer of sorts, a lover of old noir and science fiction. Returning with vigor are his 3 able-bodied artists, aces in their own field, much like our detective. And beat me Daddy 8 to the bar. Take a gander at those rewards. The exclusives are the real cat's meow. Be sure to peruse the add-ons as well. Commemorate your purchase with these additional items. Don't be a fuddy-duddy. Back Star Noir today. It's the only way to defeat the communists.
I have to know. I must know who narrated the trailer. Oh wait, hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
That's me. I did it.
Oh, you did that. Bravo.
Thank
Bravo.
you. It started with me doing that voice just to make my girlfriend laugh, and then we were doing Star Noir. I was like, what if instead of doing like, "Hi, I'm Tony," and get my comic book, I thought, what if I just narrate it like an old radio personality? And she's like, you should definitely do that.
Brilliant.
And then people loved it, and
Yeah.
I feel like
it worked. Were you in theater at all, or you just did it for fun?
I was in theater, but I was really more like a background kid. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's the one voice that I do pretty entertainingly. So
And the fact that you love golden age Hollywood movies, and that I'm sure you picked up the accent, the old American accent.
the transatlantic accent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
So yeah, if you're a new reader, the 6th Extinction is the reward tier that gets you all physical books so far. So
you get all issues 1, 2, and
1, 2, and 3.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, let me just which one?
Oh, it's called the 6th Extinction. It is it's a ways down. We passed it. Not too far. There you go. Right there, 6th Extinction.
Right. Okay, nice. You get 3 perfect bound books, 150 pages each. Oh, total or each?
Total. What
Total of 3 books.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We get all
shipped in a Gemini mailer. Comes with 2 digital copies, including everything in previous years. Nice. This is the deal right here for sure.
And
and also I love the fact that you're gonna have Orson Welles in the next book.
Oh yeah, that's a pretty humorous scene.
Because I am a huge Orson Welles fanboy. Like I love all his movies. I've read all his biographies. He's like one of my favorite, like American icon people, in history. Just the fact that he succeeded downward, if that makes sense. It started with Citizen Kane, and then he just started going down. But his movies just got better and better, even with the crappy budget that he would get from producers, because they just didn't like him for whatever reason. But that's great. I'm looking forward to it.
It's a pretty humorous scene. He's filming Macbeth. That's how the main detectives.
Okay.
I was wondering why he was dressed up like that in that preview.
Yeah, and I don't know if I've ever seen that kind of famous commercial that Orson Welles is in, where he's drunk and they're selling a wine.
Oh yeah.
So we took our cues from that commercial, and we kind of built Orson's personality sort of around that.
Awesome. That's perfect.
Cool.
Yeah.
Those are great. I don't know if you've seen it, but John Candy did a great Orson Welles.
Okay, I gotta check.
If you can find it on YouTube, just type in John Candy's Orson Welles, and he nailed the Orson Welles impersonation perfectly.
Nice.
What's up, Edwin?
Hey.
But that pretty much sums it up, man. Now let me ask you this before we go. What's after Star Noir? What's next on? What's the other story you really want to put out there? That's outside of Star Noir.
There is a really, really fun Western that I'm working with a brand new art team on. It mixes genres like Star Noir, but it's like one that it despite the genre that it's mixed with, it does commit to the Western. We figure out how to bring this one genre into this Western setting. I'm really excited to tell that story. Where it's being told as the size of the book is going to be Silver Age. It's going to be a little bit bigger than a traditional book.
Is there a
And
specific reason that you decided to go with that size, standard size?
without spoiling the premise of it, it just it lends itself narratively to kind of show bigger landscapes for what we're doing.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah, Sergio Leone, huh? David
Yeah,
Lean.
yeah.
All right.
So it just kind of made sense for what we're doing to kind of just like just
Oh, that's
tell a
gonna be.
little,
That sounds
bit bigger.
great, dude. That sounds
Yeah.
fantastic.
And then that one has like a couple of like experimental things that we do with the art and the colors that
Awesome.
are in relation to what's happening in the story.
Will this also
So-
be a multiple book series or just a
Yeah.
one shot kind of deal?
Yeah, multiple books for this. So this Western coming up, I'll be trading back and forth between this Western and Star Noir.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And they're completely separate, right? They'll never get.
Yeah, they're cute. Please, yeah. Someone asked me if I would eventually Stephen King all this stuff, and I was like, well, let's just make them great stories on their own first, and then I'll
There
figure
you
out
go.
how to connect them.
Yeah, the whole shared universe thing is kind of being played out a little bit.
Yeah.
But hey, you never know, right? Like maybe down the line you'll be like, yeah, all right, let's do it. Screw it. But okay, Kyle, you have any other questions you want to ask Tony before we call it a night?
I think that's the reason why I've been liking this story, and I'm looking based off your premise, it sounds like I'm gonna like that as well, because it's funny, we've talked about this on the show before, how a lot of the books that I read now that I pick up currently, the ones that I really am excited to read about aren't necessarily the superhero ones. They're the like Conan the Barbarian or like the Rocketeer or something like that. It's like they're not necessarily the superhero generic superhero ones. They're sort of like the other hero types and different genre types. So I think that's the reason why it's nice when you actually see different genres and different takes on these, themes in comic books rather than just Superman superheroes.
Yeah, I just as an indie creator, I do see some of it, but I don't see enough of people kind of on understanding the fundamentals, the Will Eisners, the Alan Moores, the Frank Millers, the Graham Morrison, just like studying from all of the greats and studying what they did well, and trying to find their own version and modernized version of that. The Star Noir has so many panels with no dialogue, with just silent actions, and that's just reading like the Dropsy Avenue stories for Will Eisner. Like every time characters would do an action, and I was just really kind of pulled into like what they were doing, what's the emotion behind that action, and then just trying to recreate that stuff in my own comic book. So it's like I hate the term, but it is apt. I'm a student of the game. It's a corny term, but it is accurate. But yeah, I studied the greats, and I just tried to emulate the best of what they did.
Awesome.
Cool.
That's the way it should be.
It's working out. So keep on.
Yeah, no, really
doing it.
Yeah.
Don't stop now.
Yeah. So yeah. So I can't wait for you guys to read the next one. For your new reader, I hopefully you jump in. I know you'll have a great time. Just because so many people want to tell me which streaming service they'd like the adaptation to be on, and it's like, whoa, slow down.
Yeah, right. Let's focus on the comics here. We're making comic books here.
I know, but they're just like, no, I need 8 episodes on Netflix. So you're like, whoa, hold on.
Well, you just never know. You could find a backer who has connections, and they might throw it their way. You just never know in this day and age. We're so connected now with social media, and the 6 degrees of separation are very close now. And so, hey, you never know. You never know. Anyone can get lucky now. Hit the lottery.
Yeah, but in the short term, I'm just happy with them being great comic books. That's how they're designed. That's how they're envisioned. So anything else would just be extra.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, did you ever write the story where it's like with the intention that if you're thinking it's gonna become a movie or TV show or something like that?
No, there was I read Alan Moore has this very short book. Actually, I have it right here.
Let me see. I'm gonna guess in my head. Yep, that's it. Yep, mine's worn out like crazy.
One of the things he talked about was pet peeves is that I guess they were doing it in his era as well. It's like people taking failed screenplays and just kind of trying to make a comic book out of it, and then just just having a complete disregard for the medium and the strengths that the medium has. And you know, I was just trying to really kind of take that to heart. And it's like, no, if you're going to make this a comic, like, you know, what are the page turns? What are the splash panels? Like, what are like, how is it going to start? How is it going to end? I mean, you know, the second book, it has a bookend to the how it starts and how it ends, and that comes from Alan Moore's kind of school of thought of just playing to the strengths of the medium and using all the tools that it gives you.
100%. I totally agree with that.
Well, you know, especially when you are able to do stuff that you won't be able to do in movies or TV shows that you can do in comics.
There's so much that the medium offers writers and artists, and you know, it sucks that for the most part people are focused on trying to make storyboards for potential TV shows or movies down the line, when in reality is like you have such a platform here that can do so much more than a great CGI company. And no disrespect to the CGI artists either. It's just that every medium has its positive sides, and comics positive side is that we're not bound by the motion picture, right? The second picture. We're bound by just the 2D art, right? But the sequential structure is such a way where we can tell the story however we want, with long panel, small panel, extreme panel, you know, long, you know, it's just, you could do all these variables, and if you master it, or if you master it, for lack of a better term, you can potentially be this great, you know, comic book storyteller, which is what Frank Miller is, or it still is. When you look at his Daredevil run and you see that some pages have 12 to 13 panels, and you think right now, you think, oh my God, it's so much, but he doesn't, he's so flawless with it. You can't even tell it's 13 panels because of how he was able to master that. And that's what I think a lot of modern writers and artists need to start really focusing on. It's like, don't focus on, I hope my book will one day become a Netflix or streaming service movie or TV series. Focus on, I'm going to make the best damn comic book possible. You know, because I'm writing it for the comic book reader, and also for potential readers who don't read comics, but you could lure them in because, hey, they might have a friend like, dude, you got to read this book. Like, it's amazing. And they never read a comic book in their life. And you might get them hooked on reading comics because of it. Because it's not just for kids. It's a medium that can expand to adults enjoying it as well.
If we're going to collectively restore the prestige to comics, we have to respect the medium for what it is, and not treat it as a stepping stone towards Hollywood.
Absolutely, 100%. You and I are on the same wavelength, Tony. Really, right there. I'm glad I had you on because, you know, the video I'm going to play. I had this. It's so crazy. Synchronicity is happening right now as we speak, because the video I'm about to play for the end is Alan Moore talking about this very thing, which is crazy that we're talking about this right now.
Cool.
Holy mackerel, man. Wow. My mind's just blown.
Kismet,
blown away.
But anything else, Kyle or Tony, any last thoughts you want to, share before we call it a night?
If you guys love sequential storytelling by a famous artist, author, Eddie Campbell from Hell, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Truly.
Nice.
There's like one scene where they're having a conversation on the horse and buggy, and then like on the same page, there's like a third or fourth of that page is a vertical row of other panels where like there's this alleyway scene happening. So you're kind of getting like almost like a dual camera thing going on, but it's all happening on one page. It's really interesting. That book is full of really interesting layouts and sequential things. That's worth studying.
That's as much as a lot of people don't like Alan Moore now because of his outlook. I mean, you can't deny his genius and his contribution to the medium to show everyone look how much we can do with this, and don't be bound by just simple squares. You can do all sorts of things within those squares. So it's a testament to his genius as a storyteller.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Kyle?
to like sum up, this whole show. Thank you so much for
Yes.
coming on by. We talked about politics in comics, what that means. Should superheroes be political? Should storylines be political? What does that look like? I think we came to a consensus of like it's a lot of the writer's responsibility to make sure that the stories are integrated subtly and flawlessly within the story, not in your face, not heavy-handed, and you're gonna be the better off for it. Superheroes themselves, as long as they are within their normal viewpoints and only challenged on their viewpoints, not necessarily amongst other modern viewpoints that are just thrown at them. That's the way that you can introduce politics or social issues or whatever into comic books without disregarding the reader or belittling them or thinking that they know less than you.
Right. That's huge.
And I think that it's great that we have you on. Definitely check out Tony's book, Star Noir, on Kickstarter. The links have been in the chat. We think that it's a great book. You should definitely check it out. Check out our review of the first issue on our channel. As we go over the first issue, talk about it. We go through the whole issue.
And it was worth the pickup.
It was worth the pickup. So definitely check it out. And we definitely suggest you pick up 2 and now 3 as well. And then just thank you and make sure to always build those experiences as my catchphrase is, make sure you get in those, interviews, get in those situations where you are able to, flourish and thrive, and you never know what might happen.
Absolutely. Well said.
So make sure also to like and subscribe to us.
That's right.
Well.
I always forget that. Man. But you know what? It's all good. It's all good. I like this. It's more organic. It's a lot more, grounded. So that's fine. I don't have to be a YouTuber, right? I'm just a writer who has a YouTube channel. So I'm fine with that. But okay, yeah, guys, thank you again for joining us. Those who stuck around and watched the show, don't be shy. I mean, join in the conversation, join the chat, interact with us as well. We like to hear from you too. So I know there's a lot of, lurkers back there. I can see you. I see the little number on my little screen there, but you guys are not interacting with us. But
you must come on right now, talk.
Yeah. Don't be shy. Don't be shy to join in. We want to hear from you because that's what keeps the industry healthy, is that we got to hear from each other. The letters page of the comic books are gone. This is it. I think this is the future where we get to share. Now it's a comics chat where you can provide your thoughts on certain books that you may like or you may not like. I want to hear it all. That's a healthy way to keep society and our culture going. So, come on, join in. Join in on
Come on.
By the way, you can find me on Twitter at @T/J or
there you go.
Instagram @BananaBat. So. There's a place you can find me.
Yeah, follow Tony and keep in touch with what he's working on and his thoughts on certain things whenever they may arise. Hell, I mean, it's all about just if people out there are complaining about what's out there in the mainstream, then look to indie, because I think that's where the true creative spirit is resting right now. Is in that spot. It's just that we don't have the resources of major publishing comic book sites that shed a spotlight on it. We have to pretty much kind of help each other out in a lot of ways, and that's why I started this channel with Kyle, because I wanted to bring that back. I really wanted to showcase not just the other comic creators, but also talk about the industry, talk about comics, and really showcase how much we love the medium, not just superheroes, right? It's all about the medium, what it offers. So subscribe, and if you want more of that, check us out. Let people know about it even. So with that said, have a great weekend. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.
All right, yeah, you had to think about it for a long time.
I did. All right, here we go.
To do anything other than comics. I think that it's a bit of a shame that sometimes people tend to regard, even people in the industry, tend to regard comics as the poor relation. It's something to be doing until they get a job on television or writing proper novels or, you know, doing films. I mean, for me, that tends to degrade comics a little bit. I think that if comics aren't the art form that they should be, it's the fault of me and the other people in the field. We should be doing something about it. And I think that comics are a wonderful art form, and I think that nobody really, since the great era of American newspaper strips, nobody really has come anywhere close to sort of realising the possibilities of comics. I think there's an awful lot of work to do. It's very much like if the first films had been short children's cartoon films, and as a result of that, people had said, well, this is obviously a medium for kids, then you'd never have had a Citizen Kane, you'd never have had a Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. All these films just would not have happened because they're adult films, and they wouldn't have occurred in a children's medium. And that's what's happened in comics. People say comics are for kids, so therefore, you know, it's got to the stage where unless you want to put a comic out which probably hasn't got a market for it, you do something for kids. Now that's starting to change now, and I could see, with a bit of luck, in 10 years maybe we'll have a medium that will be as important as films or as literature.
In England, though, comics are taken more seriously than in this country.
Perhaps slightly, but I think that in general, in the rest of Europe, in France, in Italy, in Spain, comics are taken very seriously. You'll find a review of a comic book alongside a review of a new ballet or a new film. You can open the papers and nobody thinks that you're retarded for reading comics. It's something that an adult can do without risking social disgrace. You know, whereas I think in this country and in my own country, I think that the people who read comics, well, it's a bit like people who collect barbed wire. It's very interesting, but you wouldn't want one moving in next door to you. You know, and I think there is that stigma attached. You're regarded as abnormal if you don't stop reading comics at the age of 12. You know, and yeah, and that's true in my country as well as yours. It's changing. I mean, hopefully I'll be able to do this job in 10 years and sort of walk down the street and hold my head up proud, you know. But yeah, at the moment, it's still regarded as a very cheap pulp gutter medium.
How do you see that changing? Or how do you see the implementation of that?
Well, I think that, for one thing, we have to break out of the current ghetto that comics are in that comics have been wooing a fairly small audience of fans, because those fans are regular readers. They'll buy the book month after month. They can be depended upon. Now, that's good in terms of short-term sales, but in the long term, it means that your audience is shrinking and just getting smaller and smaller as you appeal to a more select and specialised minority. What we need to do is to get people who've not read comics before. I did hear from Steve Bissett that on one of the panels that he'd been sort of talking to some of the fans, that there were a lot of Swamp Thing fans who were coming to the book not from comics, but from Stephen King and Peter Straub. And if we can get that sort of readership, if we can grab a part of that adult readership that reads proper, respectable books, then I think we'll be home and dry. I mean, another thing that I would like to see is more women reading comics, because there's a whole vast audience out there who just won't touch a comic book, and I can understand why they won't touch it, because there's really nothing in comics to attract a woman, because it's mainly boys' power fantasies, you know, which is, as a boy, I mean, I enjoy them as much as anybody else, but I can see that for women there's something lacking, and I think DC are starting to move in that direction. They're planning to sort of do things that perhaps will drag in the women readers, and I think